We're live. Happy days. Been talking the same as what we would be normally. Happy days, happy days. All right, let's see if anybody joins us then, shall we? All right. Hi, Jensen. Quinn, how you doing, mate? Always good to have you on. Not absolutely sure what we're going to be doing today. Not sure at all what we're going to be doing today. Is there anybody else that's actually interested in coming on at all today? Interested in coming on? Yeah, I haven't got any really massive topics to talk about at the moment. I'm more trying to wait to see if anybody actually comes in. I am very appreciative. I've somehow already managed to have 4 likes on a video with only 2 people watching. So that's always nice. 1 person watching. Happy days. Maybe I've done this a little bit too early. Maybe. Oh dear. Do you want to come on and talk about that then? Because I found that quite interesting. Very, very interesting, actually. I just found it a little bit weird. Do you have a microphone to hand? Do you have a microphone or a laptop or anything else like that? Headphones? Yeah, we can give it a go. If you click on the link that I'm going to send you in this chat, just click on it and come on in. Add as moderator. You have now been added as a moderator. Always
Hello?
weird hearing. Hello there, mate. It's always weird hearing
yeah.
your own voice. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm okay, mate.
There should be a button right at the top. If you move your mouse, there should have a little bit right at the top, and if you click on the camera bit, it will stop putting your camera on. There should be a button right at the top. If you move your mouse, it should have a little. It will stop putting your camera on. Because I can see that you're holding your thumb on it.
I've taped up the camera. I don't do pictures.
No, that's fine. Nor do I, mate. So don't worry about it.
Right. I'm looking at this and I don't know what I'm looking at.
Well, basically, have you still got me on the other page, as in the YouTube page?
Yes.
If you mute me on that page, you'll be able to hear me a lot better on this.
Okay, muted on YouTube.
Yep.
Oh, right.
There you go, my mate. Is that better?
Yes. Hello. On Facebook, a friend of mine put up a little bit about the guns and abortion thing, and I pointed out in the first 3 words the blatant sexism in it, and it kind of went to badly from there on.
but you have to do what Anita Sarkeesian says. You've got to point it all out.
Oh, of course, we must do exactly what we are told. Oh, let's put it this way: this friend of mine has already got in touch with my sister, and she's coming round on Sunday to give me a good bitch slapping. So I'm going to enjoy that.
I don't know how to take that.
I don't blame you, man. It's going to be interesting.
I can imagine. I can imagine. Wow. I can't see. I never understand when people have disagreements online. I never understand how some people will be okay about it, and you can go and meet them in real life again afterwards, and they don't mention anything that's happened online. Then you get some people that just completely and utterly go, "Well, this is real life." It's like, no, that's the reason why we go in RL, in real life.
Yep.
It's slightly separate.
To be honest, I hold back when I talk to most people because I can be, how am I going to put this? A little extreme in some of the things I say.
Never. I mean, you've obviously heard how me, British and Ogre are, so yeah, we don't really hold back much either.
Okay, how, to use a leftist term, how safe is this talk here, or am I going to get shot?
Well, you won't be getting shot by me. It depends on if you know anybody that's watching you and knows who you are. It's the same as what it would be on YouTube. The same for all of us that would be on YouTube.
Well, okay.
As long as you don't use real names, you'll be fine.
Oh, no names are actually involved in this. It's just, it depends on how easy you get offended, simply.
I never get offended.
Awesome. That may change.
Hit me
All right.
with your ribbon stick.
Okay, we'll go with a simple one. First off, I don't actually have a problem with the concept of people needing abortion. Okay, I want that stated at the beginning. I'm actually okay with that in the basic. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
As long as the person doing it understands they're murdering somebody. If they can cope, if they can actually cope with the fact that they are causing the death of a person when they have an abortion, I will fight at the barricades for their right to have that abortion.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, good. So it's not actually as offensive as most people that hear that and, well, throw things at me and shriek.
Well, I suppose I'm a slightly bit different. I'm as I'm sure you're aware by watching different live streams, I'm quite a libertarian when it comes to the ideas of doing things as long as it doesn't hurt other people. I'm probably of a little bit of a different disposition to you. I'm more of a pointer to the law where I don't believe the sanctity of life begins at conception. I think it begins at around about 20 to 24 weeks, which is roughly when most places say that's the limit of when you can have an abortion. But I am with you that if people do know that what they're doing is they actually getting rid of the fetus, they're getting rid of the baby at that point, then that's up to them. The only thing is, I said this in the video that I did, I'm for abortion, but I'm for abortion where you're not having over 3, 4, 5, 6 times in a year visiting an abortion clinic. I think you should be limited to only 2. Because if you have accidents, fair enough. But if you've got 2 in a year, I think you're doing something like a contraception now, considering that most pregnancies last for 9 months, obviously.
You'd think that they'd have got the hint after the first time, wouldn't you?
You would have thought so, but then some people use it as a contraception, don't they? So
yeah, that's falling. I mean, as I say, I don't have a problem with people having an abortion. In fact, some people need to, given dependent on said situation.
of course.
But they must understand they are actually killing somebody, at least, up to a point. And after all, legally, there has been several points where people have been arrested for attempted murder when punching their girlfriend in the stomach to get rid of the child.
Or pushing them down the stairs.
That
old little. Yep.
I only use the punching as a descriptive in this, but it just, I don't know, it just seems to me that people have a very double standards when it comes to that sort of thing.
Well, I think people take themselves out of the situation. I think they look at it and think, well, it's not a baby until it's born. And I'm of the concept that, as I said before, it's 20 to 24 weeks. I think that's when you start getting brain activity and you start moving about. To me, I think that's when the sanctity of life starts. But some people like yourself and Jacobs Rees-Mogg and Ben Shapiro believe it's at the point of contraception. So everybody has a different concept on it. I think that.
I don't
Sorry.
disagree with you, mate.
Yeah. Look, I do find it so funny, as you said, when you start talking to any sort of female at this point in time about this in general, you always seem to find out that they either screech at you or they just go, "Oh, you don't understand."
Yes, that's
And
always a good one.
you just think, yeah, and you just think to yourself, well, I may not understand how you're feeling because it's your body, but I can tell you how I'm feeling as a man being the father of this situation. I can understand how I feel about this, being that I helped make 50% of this.
Yeah, that's fair. It just seems odd to me, the extremes that people are willing to try to cross-reference abortion and gun control. That's all.
Well, that's the reason why I did the whole video. The reason why I did the video was because I saw that there was a little article that was retweeted by Feminist Frequency, and I thought, well, no, I want to have a look at this. And they put that all you have to do to get a gun in America is go, oh, I want to get a gun, and then you get a gun. And I know for a fact that's not right. I mean, most people that are not even in the US knows that it's very hard to get a gun with all your background checks and everything. It's not easy. But it just, the propaganda that's been set in the piece that I used is just absolutely amazing, considering that it was actually put out the day after. I thought the publicity and using this as political point scoring was just absolutely diabolical, and just goes to show you the inhumanity of what the left is at this moment in time.
Completely agree with you. Can I have 2 minutes? My cat's just come in. I just want to put some biscuits down for her.
Yeah, you're all right, man.
I will be right back.
No worries. All right. Is there anybody else waiting in the chat at all? Anybody? To be fair, I haven't really got too many topics. We will be finishing around about 10 o'clock, the absolute latest tonight. Unfortunately, I've got some other stuff that I need to get on with. Haven't been doing too much. As I'm sure that some of my subscribers are aware, I've been missing my opportunities on Wednesdays. I didn't do a video on Wednesday. Didn't live stream, but didn't do a video.
And that.
Yay!
Oh, there's actually people watching. Awesome.
I get some people watching. It's weird.
It was just a surprise.
Sorry, mate.
I was saying, it's no disrespect to you, sir. It was just a surprise to suddenly know, oh, there are people out there that can hear me. Oh, God, I'm in trouble.
Nah, you're fine, mate. No, I never, when everybody ever says, oh, I didn't mean any disrespect, it's like, I've got 64 subscribers. I don't have any respect. I just have a nice small group of following, and I'm quite happy for that small group of following.
That's fair, I suppose. All right.
Well, the thing is, I never expected anybody to actually start subscribing or anything else like that. When I first started doing this, I honestly thought, well, I'll start putting my voice out there, see if anybody understands what I'm saying, see if anybody goes on it. And the more and more I speak to people, the more and more people go, oh, I now understand why you called yourself the common sense guy. You may not be academically gifted, but you come up with some common sense. And it's just like, well, yeah, that's the whole reason why I went this way. I know I'm not academically gifted, but I tried to give a balanced opinion.
That's all you can really do, though, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Exactly. I mean, I'm only one man. I mean, I'm only one cat.
Yeah, so, as you know, cats are the superior being.
Apparently so.
I was watching Oh, sorry, after you, sir.
No, go on.
I was just saying, I was watching the thing on Ogre's channel last night with you guys.
That was fun.
That was interesting. For something that I didn't expect to last for more than a half hour, it went on for nearly 3 hours, though the first hour was in music, but it was good for a laugh.
It's not bad. The good thing is about me, Ogre, and Britisher is that we can always seem to talk about almost anything. Whether we agree or disagree, we may have a heated debate or a heated discussion, but we're all friends at the end of it because we all know that it's an opinion. None of it really means anything because we're all just guys that are on a laptop or on a computer talking into a bloody microphone. We're not going to change anything.
Yeah, unfortunately, very true. But then again, I mean, it's when you start to get the idiots that join in and start spouting, shall we call it, the nastier comments. They're the ones that get upsetting, I have to say, because we're having an intelligent discourse here, and then you get some muppet going on shouting about Nazi this, and I don't know. Do people not understand the concept of discussion?
See, to be fair, I would love to have a discussion with a proper Nazi. I'd want to understand the reasons why that he or she goes down that sort of ideology, why that ideology appeals to that person, who took him down that way, what made him feel that that was the best way for him or her to go down. I'd love to have a conversation like that.
I can understand that. I mean,
it's not because that I'm interested in the actual ideology. I'm just interested in the reasons why you would choose to go down that ideology when there's so many other enlightening ideologies out there. I even think feminism is more ideologically enlightening than what Nazism is in that aspect. At least they're not trying to kill everyone. They may be trying to oppress everybody and put women above men and make men slaves, but at least they're not actually trying to kill everybody.
You forgot the word yes.
What was that?
Oh God. You forgot the word yet at the end of that statement.
Well, we all know where the ethno-state is going to become, just because they say that it's going to be a small, non-lethal cleansing. Unfortunately, if you try to move any sort of group of people, they will fight back. There will be casualties. So if they were ever in power, it wouldn't be an easy transition.
Very true.
Hello there, Blood. How you doing, mate? Good to see you in a chat.
Good evening.
Oh, hello there, Britisher. How are you doing, sir? Did not expect you coming on.
I kind of walked into the ethno state, it appears. I walked in, and just as I came in, you were on about the ethno state and there being blood.
I was saying that Jensen Quinn was saying that we were talking about different things yesterday, us three. And he was saying that sometimes you get Nazis coming in. And I said, I would love to have a conversation with a Nazi to find out how their ideology works and why that they've gone down this particular reason.
You're wrong. that tends to be how their ideology works.
So in that case, wrong. Then
I'm right.
Yeah, that explains a lot, then, Britisher.
Well, yes, in a kind of self-ironic way, yes, it does. But I think you can see where I'm going with this. They will just basically bark at you and tell you that you're wrong. That the only position that is in any way acceptable is theirs, and that's it.
Sounds somewhat like the left.
Which, yes, is of course very ironically exactly the position which the proud anti-fascists on the other side of the political spectrum take. Yes.
Yeah, as we've always said, both sides of the same coin or the bottom of each ring. They're so close together that they're basically the opposing.
It's kind of a shame that the only way in which the population really wins a coin toss in a political contest is if the coin stands on its edge.
Very true.
Indeed. We were talking at the beginning about my little latest video about the correlation between the abortion and gun control laws. How some people think that it's so easy to get a gun, like you just decide that you're going to get a gun and you go to a store and you buy it on the spot without any checks or anything, and how hard it is to get an abortion, apparently.
Okay.
I was just wondering what your take would be on that, from Americans' point of view, not on ours.
It's kind of interesting there, because we kind of touched upon that yesterday when we'd gone off air, didn't we?
Shh! Don't let them know we talk off air.
Yes, well, we only exist online. We basically suddenly turn into some kind of ephemeral, gaseous being no sooner than we actually go offline. But no, if you remember, I sort of said it. The one thing that strikes me as odd when it comes to the question of abortion and gun law is that both tribes basically have a set position on both those subjects, which are not related to each other.
Yeah.
And both of them are diametrically opposed. And what is so funny is you would kind of, so basically, if you're a Democrat, then no matter what, you are for abortion and against guns. And if you are a Republican, then no matter what, come hell or high water, you are for guns and you are against abortion. And the bizarre thing is, there doesn't seem to be any crossover.
You're absolutely right. I was listening to it. I watched Kevin Logan tweet 2 days ago. I'm sure everybody knows who Kevin Logan is, Mr. Potato Head.
He's one of these. He's the person I would refer to as Mr. Charisma.
You may assert to him as that name. Yes, I would call him Mr. Potato Head.
Okay.
One of Christie's crew, yes. He tweeted out that
one of Christie's crew, yes.
Exactly, yeah. He tweeted out. I'm going to paraphrase because I haven't got it in front of me, but he tweeted out yesterday, going, "If you say that you are from the left, how can you be for gun control? You're not real left. You're not really on the left." And it's just like, so many people that are on the left were saying, well, no, I'm pro-gun control because I want to defend myself and everything else like that. Who gave you the right to be able to say who's what on what political spectrum just because you're opposed on one point? And he never answered a single one of them. Well, not one single one of them.
As I say, to my mind, there is something tribal going on, and there is also something that's akin to brainwashing going on both sides. Because otherwise, I do not understand how there cannot be that famous word, diversity, when it comes to that area of thought. But that is just it. It's diversity of thought, not diversity of pigmentation.
Yeah.
But bizarrely, it appears to be a monoculture on either side.
Yeah.
It's as if everybody else gets ethnically cleansed out of the kind of political geography.
Yeah, everybody goes into a political box, even though identity politics was supposed to be the point of having no labels. Everybody has more labels than what they did about 10 years ago and is fitted in more boxes than what they were 10 years ago. And that was supposed to be the ideology that was supposed to get rid of labels. Oh dear, that didn't work.
Yes, I'm just waiting for the political figure to arrive who basically says, I am for guns and I'm for abortion. And
I'm here.
See him get stabbed from the back, the front, and both sides, if you know what I mean. Because you can imagine.
I don't want to be Caesar. I'm going back.
He would be immediately attacked by the Democrats for being pro-gun, and he would be immediately murdered by the Republicans for being pro-abortion.
Exactly.
So, but that kind of shows that you've kind of got into this kind of groupthink, and that's where I kind of think it is important that the right and people on the right who kind of point to the left and point to the groupthink, which is clearly there, but they don't see it. They seem to be blind to it on their own side. So it is not as pronounced on the right at the moment as it is on the left, but it is nonetheless there.
Yeah, well, the reason why it's not as pronounced on the right is because everybody keeps on telling the right that they're in the wrong. So, as in, obviously, the far right, where everybody goes, no, you're in the wrong, don't come up with these ideologies. Even people that are on their side, to a point, the good people on every side, as Mr. Trump said, are saying to these people, do not come out with your racist bullshit. We just want to have a political safe for conservatism. and what they're doing is regulating themselves to get the crazy right at the back of the queue. And unfortunately, the left isn't doing that anymore. The more and more people that go in left. I mean, did you see Blair White's latest video when she was interviewing the Slut Walk down in Los Angeles?
No, I cannot say that I'm a particular connoisseur of Blair White.
Fair enough. I'll give you a little quick premise. Basically, the premise was that obviously she handpicked some of the people to come onto the show. I'm sure of that, like most people would do to fit a narrative. But it's funny how many people she got. She got about 6 people that she asked, "What's the reason the Slut Walk?" And not one of them gave her a proper reason. Nobody knew. Nobody knew the reason for Slut Walk. She asked them, "Oh, how would you explain rape culture?" Not one person can give her a definitive answer, and it's just like, these are people that are protesting in the street, and you don't know why you're protesting, and you wonder why people call you idiots.
Well, in all fairness, do we know really for sure that those were the only people she asked?
Oh no, that's why I said I know that she would have asked other people, but the people that she chose to put on her video.
Basically, it was edited in that regard in order to make them look as idiotic as possible. Because
I imagine so. I imagine she chose
that might have been half a dozen out of 30. Do you understand what I mean?
No, you're completely right.
So it may have been kind of edited for maximum effect.
Oh, definitely. No, I definitely agree with you. It's definitely been edited for maximum effect. But it's just funny that you can have these type of people that have had these points. I'm not trying to say that Blair White's done this completely unbiasedly.
You will always get people who turn up to demonstrations who don't really know what it's about. I mean, there was quite a famous incident that I think went viral when, was it some black student who basically was asked why he was there demonstrating against Milo Yiannopoulos. And the man was a white supremacist, he was a racist, he was a Nazi, he was, far right, he was alt-right.
Wasn't he a homophobe?
Anything. Yes, but then when he was actually asked, well, when did he actually say anything? I mean, what can you point to that it then kind of occurred, it then eventually emerged? Well, I haven't really watched any of his stuff, but I'm told this.
No, you're correct.
And you sort of thought, well, yeah, that you don't really convince us as to the reasoning as to why you're here. So yes, there are definitely people who just turn up to demos because they want to be in with the in crowd. Or possibly they want to get credit. They want to get special credits from their lecturer. Because I believe quite a few of them do get that.
They do. They really, really do. That leads us on to a nice little segue there, which I know that you didn't know I wanted to talk about it. But the idea of education and how the education system seems to be changed in every Western civilization. It just seems... Yeah, go on.
It's now become a kind of para-political institution, hasn't it? I mean, it's basically, the overwhelming majority of teachers of all shapes and sizes on, through all levels of education seem to now have a left-leaning bent to them.
I'd say it's more than a bent.
They've entirely taken over the education system.
That's better.
And you kind of look at it and you go, well, yeah, it's kind of, they've weaponized education.
Yes.
And I mean, I think, I'm in my late 40s. I would kind of blame my generation, and I include myself in this, for being kind of blind to it. I was not at all aware that it had happened.
Yeah.
And I think had people been aware of it happening, then while it was still in the process of occurring, there might have been some sort of political pressure applied to do something about it. Now that it has actually happened, it's almost too late, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, it sounds absolutely plausible, especially considering how the GCSEs in our country always seem to be adapted. Every year the test is either made easier or is changed to have different questions. It's always adapted to make it slightly easier.
Actually, this year has been kind of against that trend, I believe, hasn't it? I think for the first time it's kind of been seen to kind of be getting harder. So it's almost
it's a possibility.
It may have something to do with the Tories being in power, and isn't Gove in education or whatever. I think it might have something to do with that. That basically there seems to be some people, at least at the ministerial level, who now seem to be interested in perhaps tightening the screws a bit because they've realised that it's becoming ludicrously easy.
Would you say that's because of the Conservatives are in power, or do you think it would have happened with Labour in power as well, considering the opposing diametrics there?
I think I think the Tories in this case are more likely to do something. But I could imagine it happening under Labour if the right sort of person would be minister. You know, in that case, I think it would depend heavily on the personality of the minister involved as to whether they kind of want to turn the clock back a bit. And of course, when it comes to turning the clock back, that is much more a kind of conservative effort, isn't it? Whereas Labour, of course, being the progressives in inverted commas, they are the ones who are kind of driving the cart into the abyss, really.
Yeah, no, sounds right.
So I think if you would leave it to someone like Diane Abbott, then you could more than likely get your degree by filling out a multiple choice form.
Don't know. If you had Diane Abbott in charge of education, all you'd have to do is fill in your name at the top, and you'd get 100 marks. I'm sure that's what actually happened in a couple of American sitcoms and sitcom stories. That somebody did so well on their test, but they lost like 100 marks because they didn't fill their name in at the top and stuff like that. I know it's sitcom stuff, but I just found that quite funny.
Well, I mean, all good sitcom is in part inspired by truth.
Yes.
So we never know whether something like that might actually have occurred.
Yeah, no, very true.
There are some very good sarcastic answers to questions.
I love them. I do like watching them.
Sometimes get, which are absolute gold, which if you look on, if you Google sort of, school test answers or something like that, sometimes you just sort of think, I'm sorry, but here is a comedian in the making, when you realize that here is a pupil who has spotted the ambiguity in the question and has pretty much torn the whole thing asunder by just providing an answer like no.
Yeah.
Where you do kind of have to admire. You just have to admire the gumption of those people at times.
Oh no, definitely. You're definitely right there. What do you think about the different forms of professors then? Do you think so many professors use the United States as the main monocle of what we're talking about? Do you think the professors in the US are more left-leaning or more right-wing leaning?
Well, again, I think basically the new batch that is coming in seems to be entirely left-leaning. And it seems to be because, yes, the whole thing has become so militant that, I mean, I'm not sure whether a Jordan Peterson would get in today.
I don't think he would either. As smart as he is, I think that everybody would have blocked him.
But more than that, what strikes me is, looking at some of these lecturers and some of these professors, and particularly the professors, what sort of strikes me is, where are the kind of, absent-minded looking old goats with straggly grey hair? Where have they all gone? Because nowadays, all these professors look about 25.
I.e., case in point, the Antifa professor.
Yes, precisely. Also, you remember there was that professor in Florida who said something nasty regarding the Texas floods, the flooded Houston. And he got fired for that. And again, it was somebody who looked rather a babe to be a professor.
A lot of them are really young, really young.
That's where I'm kind of amazed, because I would have thought that you would have to have a track record to become a professor, which
especially in top universities.
Just by the fact that you would have to have a track record of years and years of experience. That would already mandate by default that you would have to be of a certain maturity, if you know what I mean.
No, you're definitely right. I know a lot of people will probably say in the chat, "Oh, you've got to start off somewhere." It's like, yeah, you do. You normally start off in like the after-school colleges and things like that. The really poor ones, and you start working up your names and things like that. But I suppose it's the common thing that happens nowadays. It's not what you know; it's who you know. And if you've already got people that are already in that sort of aspect, you're going to be propelled forward.
But I'm just surprised to see, people who are professors who are not, 40 years of age.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, no,
I
you're
mean,
right.
perhaps I have a hopelessly romanticized version of what a professor ought to be. I don't know. Perhaps I've educated myself in that regard by watching too many Hollywood movies. But yeah, I am just I am kind of taken aback when I see somebody whom I judge to be about 25 to 30 years old, and he's introduced on television as Professor such and such.
Yeah, I suppose it's exactly what you say actually. Because when if you have like for myself, if somebody was produced as a professor and he was only 25 or 28, I'm just over the age of 30, so I'd look at him and go, well, what the hell does he know? Because I wouldn't have thought he would have any life experience or anything else like that. So I thought, well,
But I mean, not just that, you just have got the feeling, how many books or thesis or whatever has he actually ever had the chance to read on the specialist subject in which he is now supposed to be a professor?
exactly. Go on
Given that
Mastermind.
he is
Pick it as
so, given that he is so young, you know. Whereas if you've got somebody who's, you know, 40 or so, and he's had 20 years of experience of in-depth study in that particular area, well, yes, then I've got the feeling he's more than likely fairly expert. And
Well, the thing is what you said before. You've also got to, if you're going to do a lecture on the 16th chapel, are you going to listen to somebody who's only looked at it in the books, or are you going to go to somebody who's actually been to the 16th chapel and said, no, I've actually seen it, I can smell it? It's like that film, Good Will Hunting. As smart as Will Hunting was, because Robin Williams at the time was saying, oh, I've been there, I've done it, who would you rather have? The person who's only got the book smarts or the one who's got the life experience that can tell you about it because he's been there?
yeah, yes.
And I know what one I'd pick every time.
No, I fully agree. As I say, I think what the world could do with is a few older professors, and you kind of wonder, where are all the old professors going if they're being replaced by new professors, or are they simply just
there's a song there,
constantly? Yes, indeed. Where are the old professors going? No. Or are they just? Are the student numbers exploding to such an extent? You know, because everywhere now we're heading for 50% people going to university.
Yeah.
Are the student numbers exploding to such an extent that we have to create that many new professorships in order to be able to handle that turnover of students, that we are simply just increasing our intake of professors so that we're just bringing in younger blood in order to make up the numbers?
Yeah. Well, I'm not 100% sure on that. I think if you look at it from a logical point of view, I mean, I don't have any sort of proof to this, so this is pure speculation or conjecture, whatever word you want to use. But if you look at it from a logical point of view, if you've got the older professors and more people coming in that have left-leaning ideologies, then you're going to have a conflicting points of interest. And if you get more and more people, especially with money that are backing them, like their mum and dad down to the university, who are they going to back? The professor who's only on tenure, or the person who donates £2-3 million a year?
Well, that reminds me of what's that? It was called Back to School, with Rodney Dangerfield. Have you ever seen that movie?
I haven't, no.
Oh, it's basically he's a businessman, and he basically never got any education, but he built a bit of an empire. You know, think sort of Alan Sugar, but in retail. And his son is at college and is screwing up. And the son basically says, well, you don't know what it was like. You've never been, you know. So the old man kind of takes up the challenge and says, oh, well, in that case, I'll go to college too. And of course, he would be the oldest freshman of all times, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But how does he get admission? Well, he simply decides to finance them a new science wing.
Of course, yeah.
So and there's sort of wonderful conversations that happen in the movie. You know, when I think it's the economics professor who kind of objects and say, "Oh, you're mad! I mean, look at the age of this man," and the the dean just basically says, "I think you're not quite familiar with the sheer size of the check we're talking about here."
Yeah, when we need to get this, just it doesn't matter about his age, but he's a paedophile. It doesn't matter about that. But he's already been convicted. It doesn't matter.
And of course, he gets to partake in the ground laying ceremony of the ceremonial first stone for the building. So of course he sticks his shovel into the ground and then throws the dirt over his shoulder, perfectly aimed at the open cabriolet of the economics professor.
Cool.
Oh dear.
No, I can highly recommend that movie. It's very, very silly, but it's also very funny.
And by the sound of it, very, very true.
Well, most good humor stems from truth.
Well, yeah, as most people, most comedians would say, you have to pick on the most common stereotypes and then make the stereotype as outrageous as possible, because then everybody can relate, but then realize that they're not talking about anybody they know.
Yes. I mean, if the two of us ever would be on Kraut and Tea stream, the one thing that we would always constantly be telling each other would be, whatever you do, don't mention the war.
Yes, we would. Yes, we would. Shh, Manuel, don't mention a war.
And of course, it has to be said with a slight accent as well.
Yes, indeed. Oh, what should we move on to next then, lads?
I have absolutely no idea.
Britisher, I absolutely loved your video about culture. It was outstanding. So.
Oh, cheers. Yes, it was a lot of work, so I'm quite happy that it seems to be popular.
Yeah, Mr. JM Blood in the chat also says he would like to pass his congratulations on to you for doing an amazing video. It touched him in places he never knew he had, apparently.
I just wish to state publicly that I have never touched that particular gentleman. I have never met him. In a way, I can only also, of course, say that a lot of it is, of course, the common sense guy's fault, because I kind of, in passing, mentioned that I was thinking of making a video like that, and then yes, he began twisting my arm, saying, "Oh, you must, you must, you must."
I did, but I did tell you as soon as you started to make it that you actually blow everybody's mind because you were perfect for it. But that's enough ass kissing from me. I am not the ogre, sir.
There is that, yes. For one, you don't have the beard.
Well, I do. I just don't have it as lengthy. But I do indeed have. Oh, he says he's single. JM Blood said he's single.
Yes, that doesn't really improve the situation. Yeah.
Well, it does for him.
Yes, moving on.
Is you pulled the.
Sorry, mate. Go ahead again. Didn't hear you.
I believe the term is you have pulled.
Yes, get your coat.
Yes, the problem merely is, and of course this is terribly, terribly homophobic of mine, that the problem merely is that I'm not so inclined.
See, you are homophobic after all.
Yes, precisely.
Just
Exactly.
because your preference.
You know, I'm sure Riley J. Dennis would have plenty to say about people like me.
You had to mention her. What? You had to mention her. Why? Why?
Well, now we can, you know, please don't make me start a debate on pronouns here.
Well, I'm just going on what she would want to be called. I give her enough respect for that. I criticize her enough, so I will give her a respect of calling her her. So that's what my little bit is on that one. We can go on to the topics of pronouns and the topics of transgenderism if you want to.
Please, for heavens, no.
Damn, okay then, fair enough.
Actually, I will just step out for a minute or two. I need to get myself an antihistamine or whatever, because I seem to be developing some strange rash on my hand. So I'll be back in a minute or two. Just a sec.
No worries, no worries. Right then, mate. Have you got any ideas what we can do? Has chat got any ideas that we can actually do? that goes for you as well, chat. So if you can find out what we can actually talk about, anything that's on your mind at all, that goes for the chat and the other gentleman I'm with at the moment. Because otherwise, we're not going to go very far.
That may be the problem. I think we've actually talked about most of the important things already.
Well, we've only talked about two different subjects. We've talked about abortion and gun control, and we've talked about, well, we haven't really talked about gun control at all, actually. We've talked about abortion. But we've talked about that, and we've talked about education.
Control is an option to talk about?
Gun control is always an option. Everything's an option to talk about on my channel anyway. Everything's an option.
Then I'd like to start with the simple concept of, let's assume that they bring in the whole, we're banning all forms of rifles, which is an interesting concept at the best of times. And let's assume that all of the legal owners of said weapons are willing to hand them in. Now, how are you going to get guns off of the gang members, off of the, how am I going to put it, the pressers, things like that?
Well, you're not going to, are you? Because at the end of the day, as you said, if you got able to get them off the Americans, you wouldn't be getting them off of the criminals. That's a dead set. You just wouldn't get them off of the criminals at all. The biggest question that you actually have to ask yourself is, why would they want to take rifles away when it was supposed to be either a semi-automatic that's been modified or an automatic that's supposed to have been what was used? Why would you take away rifles if you're supposed to be taking away semi-automatic guns and automatic guns? That would be the question on that one.
It's very true, unfortunately. The problem is that at this point you've got two groups of exceptionally dangerous people, the government and the I'll just use the term gangers to define those that didn't hand in their guns. You've now got them armed to the teeth, and everyone else is sitting there going, now we're in trouble.
That would, mate. Well, yeah, well, no, we would be in trouble anyway. I mean, some people will go that the government are against us. Some people say that we've got a deep state and things like that. I mean, there's no physical actual evidence for either or. I mean, I'm not saying that there is or there isn't on that aspect, and I'm not saying that the government wouldn't come out and lie to us either. But I'm just saying, with the assertions you make, you have to have a little bit of evidence when you back it up. But the one thing I will say about this gun control, where people keep on going, oh, when does it become an issue for the Second Amendment to go against my neighbour? The problem is when the Second Amendment ends is when that neighbour is coming to shoot at you. That's when it ends, not before. You don't take the gun away before he tries to do it, because that's his right to be able to do that. Until he decides that he's going to come and shoot at you, then you just shoot him first. That's why you have your own gun.
Problem is, it's not like the government actually likes the concept of self-defense. It's so open to abuse at the best of times, to be honest.
Well, no, it's not open to abuse at all, actually, because there would always be an investigation in what happens. The police are not going to take your word on it that if you go after somebody who's got no gun and go, oh, it was self-defense, he was going to beat me up, you'd get put in jail for murder straight away.
True, but I will remind you, I believe they use the term 3-second rule when it comes to response to violence. If you commit an act within 3 seconds of being attacked, you are generally considered a lot less of the criminal than you would be otherwise.
See, I thought it was around 30 seconds because you need to weigh up your options and be able to defend yourself. But I do understand your point. But at the same time, if somebody's only hitting you and is then running away, but it hasn't got an actual point. I mean, it's a little bit of a tough subject, that one, isn't it? I mean, that's a good subject to go on to. Is when is it considered self-defense to shoot somebody when they're attacking you?
Theoretically, if you're in fear of your own life, you're allowed to use whatever means necessary to within a certain level of violence.
Well, I'm not trying to pick on you or anything, but you just contradicted yourself when you said that. You said you're going to use any means necessary to a certain level of violence.
That's the legal definition.
Well, that's absolutely shite.
Completely agree with you. If they're going to actually put in these rules, they need to actually define it a lot more, to be honest.
I mean, my little 2 cents on that one would be something along the lines of, if you're actually scared for your life and you can't run away, because I would put that in there first. If you can't run away or you can't get away, then I think you have the option and the choice to be able to use any means necessary.
I'm wincing. I'm wincing every time that you people use the expression "by any means necessary."
Yes, I know. We're going to leave Yvette Falarka out of this.
I never said a thing. I merely said I was wincing.
Yeah, but I know the reasons why. I know the reasons why on that one, and as soon as you say it, I know, and I can't take it back. And now she's in my head, and I've got mental images, and I need to leave.
Are you mentally being pummeled by a 5 foot demon right now?
I am looking down at her, pummeling out my chest, and then looking up, and then realizing I'm not moving, and then getting pulled backwards without my knowledge. So yes, I can see that. Yeah. So, what would you think would be the best idea for gun control? Then, theoretically, obviously, none of us are going to change it.
I mean, to be honest, I really don't have a solution. This is just it. I mean, last time around when we talked about it, the ogre went into it so vehemently whilst I was in the middle of my point that I think my position, being a fairly ambiguous one, actually ended up looking as though I was totally in favor of gun control, which I'm not really. As far as I'm concerned, in certain parts of the United States, you simply need a gun. But in other parts of the United States, you don't really. And how on earth one is to square that, I don't know. So, you know, I mean, if you live in Alaska, there are wolves out there. If you live in Manhattan, there are not. So, do you understand what I mean? In some places, you cannot expect the police to come to your aid because they're more than half an hour away.
No, I definitely agree with you. I'm just going to elaborate just to clear your point up a little bit easier, because I'm sure this is what you mean. If not, please correct me.
Yeah.
Where you're going, that you think that people living in rural areas, you need to have something like a rifle, something that you have stopping power, so you can take down a wolf or take down a bear. Where in the city, the most that you should have is a handgun, at most, if you're allowed to have a gun at all.
Well, yes, but that's where I think that, you know, to put guns into a confined space like a city, like Manhattan, that's where I feel queasy, because I think then you're really asking for trouble. But as such, my position on the whole thing, and this is what I was trying to explain at the time with yoga, is it's really a question of how many dead people America is prepared to pay for the upholding of the Constitution. Because really that's what it boils down to. So there are, in a way, two positions. One is a kind of policing issue, and that's when it's about guns, and it's about, you know, deaths, and it's about crime figures. But the other is about the Constitution, and that is an entirely separate point. And viewed it from that angle, it is basically it's about basically having a guarantee, a backstop against the power of government, basically so you can stop dictators because you have an armed populace. Now, again, this is a position I completely understand, and that is at the heart of the problem, that both sides really have valid points. But in that respect, I would say it's a matter of balance, as in, at some point, you know, if 50 people a year get shot, then to put it brutally, then you can say, well, that's perhaps worth it in order to have the constitutional guarantee. But what if it's 1,000? What if it's 10,000? What if it's 20,000? What if it's 50,000? Where is the cutoff point at which the price you're paying is higher than what you think the value is of your constitutional guarantee of having the guns? And I think that is something that the Americans then have to decide for themselves. That's not something that basically us Brits have to really tell them. That's something they need to know for themselves. But I think,
you're right.
As such, that is really the conundrum they're looking at.
No, you're definitely right. The only thing I would say to that is on that point is obviously with the Paris attack, you had over 80 people run over, and I think it was just under 600 people injured. So I think it was 570 something to be exact. But that is still more people that happened with a van than what happened with this gentleman that had, I use that term loosely, by the way, that gentleman that had over 10 guns in the hotel room who was attacking 20,000 people at one time. So the question is on that point, do you ban the vans? I know it's a silly question to ask, but to me it's a case of, well, do you ban the vehicle? Because that's what you're using to kill the people and that's what the gun is being used for. I know some people go, oh, it's different because the vehicle is what you use for transport. It's like, yeah, but that's the same thing for a gun, though. You're not actually using it to kill people or supposed to. It's defense and hunting. So it's being misused anyway. It's still being a tool.
Well, I mean, when it comes to assault rifles, I'm not necessarily sure if there is a kind of, use.
You can't take a wolf out with a handgun. You can't take a wolf out with a bear with a pistol.
Assault rifles are completely illegal in this country.
Hello, Ogre. How are you doing, sir?
Very well.
Apparently not, Mr. Ogre.
No, assault rifles are assault. The definition of an assault rifle is at least 3 selectors: safety, 1 squeeze, 1 bullet, and 1 squeeze bullets until you quit squeezing. That is the definition of an assault rifle.
Yeah, this is an automatic weapon.
Yes, there are no such thing as legal. Well, I take that back. You can get one. You can get one. Some people can get one. I couldn't. I don't think my wife could. But it's very difficult. It's very expensive. And for all intents and purposes, you can't take that gun anywhere but a firing range and to and from a firing range to your house.
Yeah.
And listen,
Mr. Ogre, by the way.
Oh, good to see y'all too. And look, the answer, I'm looking it up right now, Brett. Gun deaths in the United States from firearms, and the amount of people killed here by firearms is much less than the amount of people murdered in your country by feet, knees, hands, hammers, knives, that kind of thing. Much less.
I'm not sure.
I'm looking it up right now, Brett. I'm not going to argue this until I have the actual figures, but I've already looked into this so much. I'm not guessing this. This is not so, just like the definition of assault rifle. This isn't something I'm guessing.
I mean, it's quite true that over here we have much greater levels of sort of brawling and assaults on a Friday and a Saturday night after everyone's tanked up on booze, and they're coming out of the pubs. That is beyond dispute. But I don't really think it leads to deaths.
Well, right now there's only 33,636 deaths, total deaths of firearms. I'm finding as quickly as I can where it breaks it down to which ones were killed by police officers, which ones were killed by someone in the act of self-defense. The number of murders by firearm is very, very, very low for a country with 340 some million people in it. Your chances of being hurt by a firearm are much less than your chances of being protected by one.
But hasn't the United States of America got the highest murder by firearm per capita rate in the entire world?
I don't believe so, no. I think you can go to Somalia and find a much higher rate of death by firearm. You can go to a lot of places in the world, but I can't. Okay, all I can do is developed world. I know this. No, we're not the worst, but I'm sure we're
in the developed world.
Oh, so now we're going to switch it to the developed world. What does that matter?
As I say, let's say in the let's say in the developed world, would you dispute that?
Well, I can't right now to dispute it. No, I'm looking as fast as I can while we speak.
I can answer that.
Homicide by weapons type, and for some reason when I click on this, it's not letting me go to homicide by weapons type. That's what I'm looking for, because I know for a fact that in the world, if you look at feet and hands, deaths by feet and hands, as opposed to guns, there is no comparison. A tremendously huger amount of people get murdered by feet and hands than by firearms. That is just a statistical fact. So are we going to outlaw feet and hands? There's much more efficient ways to kill people.
Let's outlaw feet and hands.
But before we carry on, I'd just like to say that Stories, and we all know who Stories is, put in an absolutely lovely comment that says Somalia has had a constant civil war for about 30 years now. Nice comparison.
Right. Well, you got. I'm just being honest.
Schmerz again, is it?
It's we live in a very safe country as long as you don't live as long as you don't live in Chicago, the South Side of Chicago. And I've been looking because of at the statistics earlier today. I'm not even feeling it. I took a nap, that's why I almost missed this. But anyway, I mean, when you
can I just ask? Perhaps Weltschmerz can tell us. Perhaps Weltschmerz can tell us this, given that she, he or she mentioned Somalia. Did all those people die by feet and hands or by guns?
Oh, so that's a joke now. So now you actually want me to just pull up the statistics so that you can see how many more people get killed by feet and hands than guns?
Oh, come on. This was a valid question.
Feet. Well, I just know that a lot of people are in the world, they're gun phobic. They have an unreason, because let me just put it this way. Since 1988, gun ownership in this country has risen by 53%. Violent crimes and murder by firearms is down 47%. It's very correlational. When you see, and again, correlation, don't show causation. I won't say it does. Yeah,
precisely.
But you have to take it into you have to take it into consideration when that line follows.
I'm sorry, no, categorically no. Because in this case, I do know about this particular thing. Crime has been falling, including violent crime, has been falling across the entire Western world. Various governments have been seeking to take, and this is
in our country where we're talking about right now.
30 years now, it's been falling.
Gun ownership goes hand in hand, as in when there is gun ownership, there is less violent crime. Demonstrably, right now.
Over here, for example, the government is claiming that crime has fallen because they've locked so many people up.
You know what? What am I thinking, Brett? I'm wrong. I'm wrong anyway. I should be agreeing with you anyhow, because look how good gun control has worked in Chicago. Look how wonderful it works there. It's the safest place on earth, right?
Well, no, just let me elaborate this point. Basically, over here, for example, the government has locked up ridiculous numbers of people. I mean, we haven't gone quite as far as Bill Clinton has, but it's just abysmal. And of course, we've also got private companies doing this. And of course, successive governments have kind of taken credit for the fall in crime. But the simple fact is that across the Western world, we have seen a tremendous fall in crime over the last 30 years or so, across virtually all aspects of crime, including violent crime. So Denmark, for example, that only locks up a fraction of the people that we do, have seen a similar fall in crime. So too has the United States, so too has New Zealand, so too has Australia. And, it's happened pretty much across the entire developed world. So, in fact, even sort of academics, philosophers have been wondering how one can explain it. Does it somehow mean that mankind has somehow become more civilized over the last 30 years? What exactly has occurred?
But Britt, you're talking about a civilized world where guns are usually illegal.
What is quite clear is we cannot point to any particular measure in any particular country. Because it has happened across all countries. So you can't attribute it to guns in the United States of America, because if it's also happened in other countries in which the guns were not involved, then it cannot have been the guns.
So you're familiar with Switzerland, right, Brett?
Yes.
Okay, do you know anything about their gun laws there?
Oh yes, they have got the most liberal gun laws in
the world,
in Europe.
In the world that I know of. If you're over 18, you can walk into a shop there and purchase a gun with an ID with no background check. That's the way it is there. They have one of the lowest crime rates on earth. I'm just telling you, Britisher, that you're trying to compare things. You're saying, well, the crime has fallen in the Western world. Well, the Western world doesn't allow guns. Yes. You need to look at countries that allow guns and see how it affects crime in that country. And in this country, hang on now, and in this country, where you have a large ownership of guns by the public, you have a drastically lower crime rate. I just gave you the example of Detroit because it's so modern and it is a city. The mayor just came out, who was a gun-grabbing left lunatic. He came out, he got advice from his sheriff, and he came out in Wayne County and said, if you're in Wayne County, you're over 18, I don't care if you're a felon, I don't care if you just got out of prison, go get a gun and carry it, because we do not solve 9 out of 10 murders in this. Crime is drastically dropping in Detroit. They're making Chicago look bad because it's just drastically going down. Because
it still doesn't change the logic.
It like 2 weeks ago, Brett, somebody tried to rob this little old lady on up in Hamtramck, by Hamtramck, and she was like, "Oh, you're going to take my purse?" Pulled out her gun, wounded the one gentleman, and killed the other one dead on the street. Do you know what that does? Think about what that does to the psyche of criminals. Anyway,
yes, but it still doesn't change the logic.
Remember, when we talk about this, because you even said it before as I was coming in, that you were talking about
simply create a rule
one at a time
for Switzerland.
One at a time. Let
America.
Britisher go first.
You cannot simply create a rule for America and Switzerland, excluding all the others. We have seen similar drops across the entire Western world.
Why though? You can look, Brett, you're comparing apples to oranges because you're talking about a drop worldwide. Okay, that's fine. But now I'm telling you about 2 countries where you can go and look at the crime rates in those countries where guns are concentrated, and look at the crime rates in those countries where they're not.
As I say, you are doing. Hang
on now. Look,
basically agreeing with
an armed populace
is a
polite populace at the very least.
Carry on, Oga. Finish your point.
That was it. I mean, I just want to say an armed populace is a polite populace. It wasn't too long ago that in Great Britain, if you were what would be considered a gentleman, you would carry a pistol wherever you went. So if a highwayman tried to rob you, you would be able to shoot them. Well, they've taken, I don't think that was altogether good because your average commoner couldn't do that. But at least that someone that had something to protect, to use their reasoning would have that. But now you have no way. So what you do is you get beaten and bludgeoned. You have criminals that have weapons. There's no, you have people that get blown up in Manchester by bombs. You have folks that get run over on London Bridge. It doesn't matter. And by the way, can I point something out? As far as this last little, and this very quick, but I'm sorry, I'm not trying to suck all the air out of it. And this last thing that happened right here in Las Vegas was illegal. We have laws that say you cannot take your legal firearm and go shoot innocent people by ambush. We have laws. We don't need a law that says that gun's illegal. And why would that stop a millionaire man that has the money to do these things with or without the law on his side? What would it make a difference? Do you think that a mass murderer stops and checks the laws before they go kill people?
Definitely not. It's the same as if you have somebody who's going to drive a van into somewhere, or somebody who's going to take a knife into a school. If somebody wants to go and kill people, they're going to use any tool they can to do it.
I get a little too worked up on this topic. I know I do. I'm sorry about that. It's just like, holy shit, every time something happens, it's like,
you realize
you need to re-examine why you have guns. No, I don't. I have a gun beside me because the nearest cop is 30 miles away.
If I had a bell, I would be ringing it now, Oga.
Before we carry on, I'd just like to introduce Stories back into the fold and ask him what his point of view is on this.
Good evening, gentlemen. At first, thank you for inviting me.
No problem.
Good evening.
I must say that I have changed my view about gun control a few days ago. I had a chat with the Mad Dodge and MC. And I looked up some statistics about it, and I'm strictly against guns. So that is to make that clear. But I'm not against gun control in the United States, because there is no direct correlation between the amount of guns and the murder rate. Because in the past few years, the number of guns was constantly increasing, while the murder rate was decreasing. So to have like a direct correlation, that is definitely not working out. The other thing is, Britisher made the point that when you are like somewhere in the wilderness, outside a city, you definitely need a gun for self-protection against animals. And when you look at Chicago, Chicago is the most dangerous city in the United States at the moment, and you are not allowed to carry guns inside Chicago. So if you want a gun, what do you have to do? You drive like 20 miles, buy your gun, drive 20 miles back, you have a gun. So it does not make sense to have like a weapons restriction within cities when you can get guns so easily. In Germany, we have like more or less a very strict gun laws, and it's very difficult to carry a gun here. If I want to buy a gun, then I have to go to Ukraine or something and cross two borders. So for me, it would be very, very difficult to get one. But when I live in Chicago, I drive 20 miles, have a gun, and go back.
Okay.
It is more or less pointless.
Can I ask one very facetious question?
Of course.
Given that you are not in possession of a gun and you cannot acquire a gun, do you live in constant fear of your life?
No. But I was not living in constant fear when I was living in LA, and I was not living in constant fear when I was in Vancouver or in London or in Shanghai. So
yes,
that was the place where I was living.
I perfectly understand that. I think people will have known. As I say, I already announced that the question was slightly facetious. I think everyone will have known what I was alluding to.
Exactly, yes. It doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily...
I'm terrified all the time. I live in constant state of fear. But you can see by this this chart right here that I don't know what we're even talking about. We allow smoking. We allow cigarettes to be legal. When drug abuse deaths, you can see this tiny little bar over here, doesn't even go up to 100,000 preventable deaths, but tobacco is over 400,000 preventable deaths a year worldwide. There's 500,000 people die from tobacco worldwide. Alcohol, almost 100,000. I say this is worldwide, but I should have double checked. This may be one of the United States.
These numbers are not even really 100% correct, because as far as I know, the number of firearms deaths is correct, but half of it is suicide. And I
thank you. Well, and it's I'm not even sure if it's half of it, but you also have a large number in there that's police officers shooting people in the line of duty. You have people that are defending themselves from home invasion and shooting people. I'm not saying that those don't count. I mean, those are people killed by firearm, but they just lump them all in there. So when you see this little line right here, Britisher and others, everyone here, this little line right here, firearm deaths, I would say this is a conversation that's not worth having. There's not enough people in our huge country that get killed when they because they woke up that morning, got killed by a gun. You have a much better chance of getting attacked by a crocodile somewhere in St. Louis, Missouri.
I would have to disagree with you on the fact that it's not a conversation worth having. I would say that it's not a conversation worth changing legislation over at the minute, especially why everybody's in hysterics. But everything has a place and everything has a reason for actually having a conversation.
That's true. Yes, so I didn't put that very well. What I meant to say is there's better conversation to have. Like why don't we work on the overweight obesity problem? I can go to McDonald's right now. I can buy 17 double quarter pounders with cheese and stuff them in my face and follow it with like 2 pizzas. You see what I mean? So when I think about this,
or you can buy.
We can't control other people's actions. So why would you want to take someone's right? And let's say, forget about self-defense or being afraid, Brett and everybody else. I mean, I know that was facetious, but it's true. It's a fair statement to make. So let's just take that out. What if I just like the mechanics of the weapon? What if I like the sound of the gun firing? What if, like you boys have witnessed me do before, what if I get frustrated sometimes and just like to take my Glock outside, set up a Mountain Dew bottle and blow it to hell and gone? Why should I be able to do that?
I've always argued that Mountain Dew bottles should have rights.
But you see what I mean? There's my best argument that I usually don't say because everybody says, oh, just because you want to have it. Well, look, on this list, well, don't look because it's down now. On this list, on another one that I had popped up, I mean, motor vehicle is right there with drowning, the leading cause of death among children worldwide. 250,000 children die in motor vehicles worldwide. Why do we allow people to drive cars? Why don't we only have bus lines? And like, well, in fact, bus lines would be dangerous. Rail lines, you know, why don't we do that?
I think I've seen a statistic as well where actually people people have higher death rates due to mooses and deers than what the death rate is for guns in your country.
Yeah, well, more people die from falling off of donkeys and horses than in airplane accidents. A lot of people don't know that. I do believe that the number of people killed by donkeys is more than guns. Yes. So let's outlaw donkeys? I don't know.
Hang on.
Can I have one more point, please?
More deaths by donkeys than guns.
Yeah, but you got to remember that. I know that's an easy one to slip in, though.
Am I correct?
Well, I don't know about guns. I know about the planes, Britt, but it's an easy one to slip in because we don't stop to think that there's billions of people that travel by donkey. Or horse. I say horse or donkey. But
yeah, I think it was horse that you were meaning because it's higher and more people fall off and break their neck. You were going to say something, Stories. Please go ahead.
Yes, and that was when I read German newspapers or German news in general. They always present the news that the majority of the Americans don't want guns and they want very strict gun controls. And I looked that up, and that is actually not true. The vast majority of Americans want the guns, even if they don't carry guns themselves, but they want to protect the right. They want their Second Amendment. So that is, in my opinion, that is a democratic decision. So, and it is not on us as foreigners to judge it. I mean, we have super stupid laws in Germany as well, and they are as holy as the Second Amendment for us Germans. Like the speed limit on the Autobahn. So,
yeah, you're not allowed to change that.
It is super stupid. It is one of the most stupid rules we have in Germany, but you can't discuss it. The vast majority is pro no speed limit, and the Americans have their Second Amendment. That is their thing, and I think, especially as foreigners, we must accept it.
Well, especially coming from people like me and the British and things like that, I think when we give our points of view, as we've all stated in this live stream anyway, that it's only speculation. I mean, none of us here are going to change any gun laws. We're only just talking about it. I know Ogre says, oh, we get heated. But when we care about something, we do get heated. And that shows you that you care about something. So I don't have any problem with people getting heated in arguments. I don't at all.
Let's remember one thing, because I appreciate your way of saying things too, Stories. Everybody's got their own way. But at asshole-ish law, we believe that this right that was endowed to us by our creator. We don't believe that anyone gives us any kind of asshole law to give us a right to bear arms or to have freedom of speech or freedom of assembly or freedom of the press or right to due process. We don't believe that those are endowed to us by birth. No matter if we're in America or not, this is what we believe, that this was endowed to us at our birth by the one that created everyone. And however you want to look at that part is fine, but that's where we don't see it as something, and that's why it probably blows people's minds. Well, why do folks that don't, and because you're right, it's upwards of 76% say that our gun laws are too strict, and so they, go ahead. Yeah,
can I say
before you do, Britisher, before you do, I will let you carry on. I promise you that I'm not going to say anything to counter anything. What we're going to do is we're going to have Britisher make this last point, and then we're going to move on to something else. We're going to move on to Uber. I'll explain it after Britisher's point. Please go ahead.
I'm quite happy with you saying that they are an inalienable rights. But what I have a problem with is it basically being referred to as inalienable rights granted to you by your creator, because that would eventually mean that your bearing arms is God's will. And I think that might just be stretching things.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, obviously, everybody has
Well,
different.
you can tell by the Britishers, by the wrap up there, that he's much wiser than all the founding fathers of this country that came up with that document, because they all agreed on that language. But I can see where you would feel that way.
Yeah, we'll leave.
Let's
we'll leave
move
that
on,
there.
man. It's
We'll
like
leave
for
that
me,
there.
I was hoping we'd move on 5 minutes ago.
But that's fine. I've just noticed that LBC, I'm sure British would be able to explain that as well, but basically that's the London Broadcasting Channel, which is a radio talk show, put up a little poll on Twitter, which is obviously, does everybody know with the situation with the licensing with Uber?
I am familiar with it.
Basically, you obviously have Uber in your countries, don't you?
Oh yes, yeah, we have Uber.
Yeah, in London they have been banned because apparently they didn't produce the right licensing. This poll has come out saying, now that Uber have started to have constructive talks, do you think that Uber should get their license back? And it was 67% saying no, they should get their license back. Yes. So I wanted to know what everybody's view would be on that. Should private enterprise carry on, or should the government be able to tell people what they can and cannot do?
If I remember right, I think I read about it. It was because of one accident, right? It was like a really tiny thing that triggered the whole prohibition, right?
Yeah, it was an accident that took place into investigation, and then the main reason why they said that they were going to cancel it was because of safety, because apparently they've had a couple of people that have supposedly been raped at that point. That's not supposedly to say that it didn't happen, it's to say that they didn't show statistics or bring any people forward for the case.
Okay.
So I just wanted to get everybody's opinion on it.
I think it's stupid, but yeah, well, it's a decision of the people. I mean, if they want to ban it, I don't understand why they want to ban it, but yeah, if that's the will of the people, that's fine.
Well, I would just basically go as far as saying, look, I mean, they've got regulations in place for reasons, and Uber will just simply have to comply with the regulations as everybody else does.
Exactly.
So if the authority that oversees it all has certain demands upon anybody who is a licensee, if everybody else, if all the black cab drivers have to jump through those hoops, then so too will Uber. So until they have effectively sorted themselves out and can conform with whatever standards that the authority demands of them, just as the authority demands it of everybody else, I think, yes, it would be right to keep them banned, because otherwise it would be unfair to all those who do conform and then still have to compete with someone who doesn't.
Yeah, no, I kind of agree with all of that. I might need to elaborate on the point. It was to say that if Uber were able to pass all the legislation and licensing laws, would it be a good idea for them to carry on doing what they were doing, to be reintegrated, so to speak? And that was the reason why 67% of people said, no, we don't want Uber. That's the reason why I phrased it as, is it okay for the government to tell people what they can and cannot do, or is it good for free enterprise to carry on if they're doing the legal stuff?
In that case, it's more of a Luddite argument, isn't it?
Yes.
That basically here is new technology that is introducing a new way of doing things. And because, of course, this threatens the old way of doing things, there is a kind of an established lobby in the normal taxi drivers who basically don't want Uber coming in. In that respect, I would say, well, look, as long as Uber fulfills all the regulations and whatever, then I don't see why, just because they're new technology and they have a new way of doing things, they should be stopped from doing that.
Well, no, and as a matter of fact, I mean, I don't know if they do it over there, but here, Uber, they have Uber delivers. You know, they actually deliver food. I mean, I feel somewhat pulled in what you just said, Britt, but it kind of goes back to the fear argument that you made about the other thing we were talking about, because it's basically what it comes down to. I mean, we don't need to live in that kind of fear. What bothers me is if the regulation would get so strong that the Ubers would have to have what they call a medallion. I don't know if they do that there. They're $1 million in New York City to get a medallion. So you have to pay $1 million for each taxi too. You have to pay $1 million to get your taxi on the road, which of course means that the British and I are not going to start a taxi business tomorrow. Even though we could if it wasn't for that one thing. But I get, you know, you're going to, I know the Brit's going to fall over, and probably common sense guy too. But in this case, yeah, man, regulations, you got to go by them. You got to have them. And they have to do what they have to do, and then once they jump through the hoops, they can do their business.
That's the point that I was making, though. They're actually starting to confirm with all the regulation. This was an opinion poll, basically asking people, would you have Uber back after them jumping through all the licensing? Now, me personally, with British's point about new technology and everything else like that, I don't think it's a case of that. I think it's more of a case of the unions for the taxis trying to block Uber because they do everything cheaper than what the black taxis do. And I think this is more of a political stance more than a fact of a free enterprise stance. As in, I think that Uber is quite safe, personally. I just think that this has more of a political point and grandstanding, as we've always said before, than what it actually has to do with failing free enterprise and not going with regulations.
Are you by any chance suggesting that Sadiq Khan, the Right Honourable Mayor of London, might be grandstanding in any way regarding Transport for London?
Please don't put Right Honourable. Please don't put Right Honourable and Sadiq Khan in the same sentence.
So you can say that. When he said that, I thought it, but I won't say that because he's
when I hear these stories, I feel reminded of the Middle Ages and the guilds. You know, that you can't do work like some craftsman because the guilds would prohibit the thing, and you must be a member of this guild to do it. And the taxi regulations are very similar. I think it is completely outdated.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's the reason why I brought up the. Sorry, I just see Mr. Wood put up in the comment section, the left and the dishonourable Sadiq Khan. Yes, you are correct. But no, with the black taxis, because it costs so much and they take so much, it's like if you're going like, I'm paraphrasing and I'm overestimating, but if you go something like 2-3 miles in a black cab in London, you're going to be paying at least a £10 note. Where if you are actually doing Uber, it's something like £2.50 to £3. It's hardly anything.
Well, perhaps living only with taxis and not with anything new that has come along is simply something that anybody who lives in a large city these days needs to learn to live with.
Well, remember they used to have phone booths everywhere too, and those are gone now. So. Oh,
really? Did this go over everyone's head?
I'm sorry. Maybe it did go over my head.
With me.
It might have. Did I miss something? I just was listening, and it sounded profound. Is all.
What did Sadiq Khan say about terrorism and people needing to
live
with
okay.
it?
Yes, we got to learn to live with it. Yes, I got it. All right,
it's an everyday occurrence for big cities, and we have to learn to live with it now.
Well, I should have got that quote. It's one of my favorite ones. Hey, did y'all see? Oh, this is off topic a little bit, but Britt, you might like this. Did you see what Nigel Farage said about your prime minister in Brussels?
No, I didn't. If this has been today, no, I'm not familiar with it.
It was either today or yesterday, Britt. And
do you have the story in front of you? Do you have the story in front of you?
On the floor. I'll find it, but on the floor, and I don't want to mess this up. He said she was a waste of space. He's like, I and all the people I talk to know she's a waste of space. We got to get a proper prime minister in the office. I was like, holy crap, he just said that.
But to be fair, it's like what British's point was yesterday, and I don't mean to take any thunder away from him, but it's exactly what he said. It's like everything seems to be conspiring against her. So is this the point where everybody realizes that she's not going to be the strong and stable leadership that she thinks that she is, and she's actually going to be for the few and not the many, because she's going to be a backbencher very soon?
Can I just congratulate you for managing to segue strong and stable leadership into that particular statement?
I'm not so against Mrs. May. I think that everybody had more or less the expectation that they get a new Maggie Thatcher. And she is clearly not a Maggie Thatcher, but I don't think that she's doing her job particularly bad. I mean, she's extremely blocked by the EU. And many things that she said were completely reasonable, and then the EU blocked her. So that was not really her fault. So you can send anybody If the EU don't want to negotiate, then what can you do? You have no chance.
No, I understand full well what you mean, Weltschmerz. That makes perfect sense in that respect. But for anybody who perhaps knows a little bit of the history of Theresa May, I mean, she is not far off Mr. Bean. She is accident prone. I mean,
yeah, yesterday was very
is
unfortunate for her. Yeah.
Yes, but what I mean is that has in a way illustrated quite a bit of her career. She has not had a career which would kind of be an outstanding, shining example of competence.
Teresa Atkinson.
Yes, I understand that, but
when
is she really particularly bad?
Yesterday,
one at a time.
When it comes to yesterday, it was not her fault that somebody hadn't glued the letter F correctly on the back wall, and she couldn't help having a cough, and she couldn't help a comedian coming in and giving her a P45. But it somehow came to illustrate kind of her previous record, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, it was more of a case, as I was saying at the beginning in the segue. It's the conspiring. It's everything that's all adding up into one great big ball, and that ball starting to unravel. And unfortunately, it's not got Theresa May in charge now. I'm kind of like Stories on the point where I didn't think she was too bad to start off with. I thought she was going to be able to go through and be able to deliver what she said she was going to deliver. Then you got the debacle that happened with the general election. Where all she was doing a presidential candidate sort of run and rally. The manifesto itself was absolutely deplorable. We're going to bring back fox hunting and we're going to tax the elderly to the hilt on the death tax. Two things that you just don't do in the UK, as we're a nation of animal lovers, and the people that normally support the Conservatives are pretty old in general. You had all of that. And then she wasn't allowed to let anybody else speak on the election trail as well, and then wondered why everybody was against her. And I don't know, everything just seems to be all adding up to the point where you just think, you've got to go, love. You're just falling apart at the heels. You're looking ill. You're literally starting to look ill. This is not your type of job. You need to step down and just go back to where you want to do. Take some time, go on a holiday, but just don't do this job anymore. You're not good at it.
The thing is, I can't judge her from a British perspective, and the only thing that I always hear is what she says at the EU negotiations, and I think that almost everything she said made sense for me, and I thought like everything she said was completely reasonable, and I thought, well, she's not doing such a bad job, but how can you negotiate if the other part don't want to negotiate? That is the only thing. And I mean, I'm far away to support a Tory. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think she's really bad. I mean, yeah.
Well, I definitely don't think that she's bad. It's just a case, I don't think that she's up for the job anymore. Everything just seems to be falling apart from her. Her cabinet are falling apart. Whether you want to think that Boris Johnson is going to mount an appeal or not, you've got Philip Hammond that's starting to break away. You've got lots of other little factions that are starting to pipe up in the corners. And yeah, you're just wondering how long can she just last? And unlike yourself, I think that she did an okay Brexit speech when she was over there to give her last speech. I thought she did okay, but my case in point is, if you liked the speech being of German descent and being in Germany, then that means that she was playing to the European people more than she was to the British people. I'm not trying to play party politics on this point. It's just a case of, if she was supposed to do something that's good for us, then why are you people like yourself thinking that she did good for you?
Can I point out maybe one single thing that she said? It was about the European people who are living and working in England. And she said that was one of her first speeches. And she said they can all stay in England. That is not a problem, as long as the British outside of England can stay in these countries as well. And obviously, after a period of time, the British laws apply to these people. And that is, for me, it's 100% reasonable. Of course, it is your country, it is your laws. If you want to stay there, you have to accept the British laws. And then the EU said, no, either you accept the European laws, or we don't accept it. And that is ridiculous, because that was the whole point to get out of the EU, to be back in charge and have your local British laws. That is, I mean, what else can she say? I mean, that was ridiculous from the European side.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say to that is that she's said that since she was first elected. I mean, I say first elected, since she was actually first put in charge. So on that aspect, I can't really say too much on that. She's been saying that for ages.
What is worth adding when it comes to the rights of foreigners to stay in Britain is that Labour have gone all out. They are insisting that if they were the government, they would permit all EU citizens to stay, irrespective of any prior agreement in negotiations with the Europeans regarding the British being allowed to stay in other countries.
But really, again,
Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party are basically saying that this is a pledge of theirs. They would accept all European citizens to be allowed to stay here without there being a quid pro quo coming from the European side regarding the rights for Britons to stay in the European Union.
That's mental.
It is entirely mental.
That's Corbyn. That's Corbyn, no.
That is Corbyn, but it is also perhaps one of the reasons why the Europeans think that this is an area of negotiations which they can exploit, because they see that there is opposition to it that in a way aids their own negotiation stance coming from Britain. So I really don't think that Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party are doing us a great many favours here.
Definitely not. Definitely not. Because
I
mean,
kind of thought you were a fan of Jeremy Corbyn, but no, I'm thinking of. I got the wrong name, don't I? Never mind. I'm just going to shut up and listen to some more of this British stuff and get caught up.
I was going to say, I don't think anybody here is a fan of Jeremy Corbyn.
No, we were talking about it yesterday. That the other guy that went to the tattoo shop with his son.
Jacob Rees-Mogg.
Yeah, Mogster, the Mog.
Yes, he is. Yeah. Jacob Rees-Mogg is about as far removed from Jeremy Corbyn as I don't know. What was that guy that just won the Alabama primaries? You know, he's quite a hardline Christian type. Jacob Rees-Mogg is as far removed from Jeremy Corbyn as that chap is from Pocahontas.
Yeah.
Okay, that's pretty far.
Yeah. Pretty much.
And just for your own edification, Brett, I did put up on the side. It took me a minute to find it. It's not on YouTube, but I did find that "Waste of Space" quote by Nigel. It's brilliant, mate.
Pitiful Theresa May. I like that. Pitiful. Yes.
It'd be no different except for his gravelier voice. If you were standing there, it sounds like something you've said in the past, how he puts it. It is very, very unceremoniously throws her under the bus. It's beautiful.
I've got a question for you quickly, Ogre. From looking over from obviously America, obviously you don't know too many of our politicians, but who would you think would be a good prime minister overall? And I know you don't know everybody, Boris. But it's just an opinion. So Boris, straight away. Yeah,
it'd be hands down for me. I guess, I mean, and again, I don't think Nigel would ever run. I do like Nigel Farage. Yes, I'm looking at two Brexiters. But if not one of them, from what I've been looking at, and I do believe he's hardcore Labour, but yeah, I like the Mogster. I like Mog. He's, I just like what I've seen of him. But to be honest, I don't
just
know
to stop you. The Mogster's actually he's Conservative. Sorry, he's not Labour at all.
That's right. In fact, I should have remembered it from the tattoo store. But anyway, the point is, obviously, from that, I don't know enough about it. So whenever I'm saying this is who I'm saying I like Boris because I like Boris. Because if I had to choose between any of the politicians that y'all have of who I would go out and have a hamburger and a Coca-Cola with, it would be Boris because we don't get laid, you know.
Oh, I do like it when a lot of people always say that, oh, Boris Johnson is a buffoon. Now, I know that he acts like one, but there's a difference between acting like a buffoon and actually being a buffoon. A hell of a difference. If you look into anything that Boris Johnson's done academically, and you'll just be, how has he even done this? Because he loves political. No, he likes what is it? He likes war history, doesn't he, Brett?
Well, he's got a degree in classics.
Yes.
So he's written books on classical history, and I think I think one I've got of his is where he compares the European Union with, kind of as an attempt to recreate the Roman Empire and so on. So yes, he has got a very academic background.
Yeah.
I remember there was an interview once where he was he was reminded of Cameron, of course, having a degree, and he couldn't help but laugh because I think Cameron had got a degree in politics.
Yeah.
And of course, he's got a classics degree. And it was sort of, just for a moment, the mask of the professional politician slipped, and he immediately managed to catch himself again. But for 2 or 3 seconds, he just laughed, as in, well, yeah, if you call that a degree. But it was, yeah, it was one of those lovely moments where kind of Boris was being Boris, so to speak.
So to be fair,
we talked about it yesterday too. He's kind of like sly like a fox. He kind of puts on that oh shucks farm boy kind of front, but in reality, that's just a front.
Well,
Yes,
I absolutely love
he's Columbo in that respect.
Yeah.
You know, Columbo
Yes.
pretends to be the fool, and all the suspects always underestimate him. And I think that, to a certain extent, is the Boris Johnson act. Yes.
No, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I do actually like the fact that Boris Johnson is quite good at speech rallying. He's absolutely great at taking a speech, because he always does these little bits where he starts to build up and then he drops, and then he builds up more and then he drops, and then he builds up more and then he drops, and then by the end of it he's almost shouting. And because you've already been with him all the way through, you're at that level. Your energy levels stick with him. I mean, I'm not saying that this is his best ever speech, but his Conservative conference speech, even people like the Sky News were saying that it was a barnstorming speech, because it literally had every sort of form of speech that you would actually want. You had every sort of form of fact. You had sniping. You had comedy. And you had it to the point. And you had the bit for Brexit. And it literally had everything that you would want as being a British person to want from a speech. And I think he's got that in abundance. He knows how to write a speech, and even better, he knows how to deliver it.
Oh yes, I would say he's more than likely, of the major politicians that we've got at the moment, he's the best speaker.
Oh, definitely, by far. He's definitely the best speaker by far. Yeah, no, definitely by far. There's a couple of backbenchers that are coming out, and there's a couple of mid-benchers that are not too bad. I can't remember his name.
To be fair, you know, I mean, Jacob Rees-Mogg doesn't really strike me as a great speaker. He has got that honesty which he can deliver in interviews, but as such, he hasn't got that barnstorming capacity that Boris Johnson has in delivering a speech.
Yeah, he's not going to rally the troops, but if you want somebody who's going to present you with a democratic fact and lead you to the democracy, then you want JP Rees-Mogg. If you want somebody to rally the troops to fight for you and get on your back and follow you into battle, you want Johnson. So to speak.
So. Yes.
Well, it's getting close to the end of the stream because I'm going to be finishing at 10. Shall we have one more topic, and anybody can choose what topic they want to talk about?
I don't like hazelnuts.
That's not a topic. That's not a topic. That's a statement.
I have a topic, but it is highly speculative. So it's just like an opinion, an idea, and not more.
Well, give it a shot and we'll see what happens.
Just quickly, before he just introduces this next thing, can I just make another statement to the common sense guy?
Yeah.
Don't mention the wall.
Mm.
Sorry, it was an in-joke. It was something we mentioned earlier in the show. I just had to.
Why Manuel? Why Mr. Forty?
Inside jokes are the best jokes.
Anyway, stories. Please go ahead.
Yeah, what I'm thinking about lately a lot is I'm really afraid of another Korean War, and I would like to know what you think. What would happen to the United States, not to Korea? I mean, Korea is then all gravel and that is it. But what would happen to the United States? That is really my concern.
Well, as the only Yank, I'll let Ogre answer that one first.
Just coming back into the room, mate. Go to somebody else. Let me get my thoughts together.
No problem, mate. In that case, then I'll take this one first. It depends on what the defenses are, but more importantly, it depends on the actual capabilities of the missiles that they have. If they have missiles that can actually reach the US, then the US might be in trouble. But if they can't reach the US, then they've got nothing to worry about in the first place, and no defenses need to be put up. I know that they are very, very well defended. They have their sort of like what they would call an iron wall, where if anything comes over into their airspace, it gets shot down. So I know that they've got very good air defense in general. They've also got to go through Pearl Harbor and things like that as well, which is in the middle of the ocean, so they can do stuff like that. They've also got bases in South Korea, so they can monitor everything there as well. So they're definitely well fortified and well defended. If one did get through, I can't see it going anywhere near East Coast. It would only be somewhere near the West Coast, maybe near the top left-hand corner type of thing, as you look at it on a map. Maybe something along that lines near Alaska, near Canada type. Maybe that would hit there. Maybe, but I can't imagine it going anywhere lower or anywhere of any sort of distinction.
Well, I mean, Seattle would be within that sphere that you really described, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. Yes, indeed, it would be.
I mean, I think I've sort of alluded to this once before that if they have missiles that can reach the United States of America, missiles such as those are very difficult to defend against, because they largely travel outside the atmosphere, and when they re-enter the atmosphere, they're almost vertical. So it's very difficult to defend against them. You pretty much have to get them at at the beginning of their trajectory. When it comes, if they, as Common Sense just basically said, if they have the technology to reach the United States, then it could get serious. Chances are they won't, but they could basically spray around mayhem no end. I mean, you know, Japan would easily be within their reach. We have to understand that the Americans have bases all over the place, and they've got a very, very big contingent of military on the Korean Peninsula. So the American death toll could be significant, even if the territory of the United States is never hit. But when it comes to the economic fallout, if the Americans are not hit, then just the fact that they would be hitting the Japanese, which would be the third largest economy in the world, and they would be hitting the Koreans, who I believe are about the 10th largest economy in the world, they would be making a serious dent into the world economy.
Yeah. Well, and I want to just, because if I understand, I was out of the room, but I could hear what he was saying. So what would happen to the United States in the case of war with North Korea?
Yes,
Pretty much.
I guess when I think about it, China's wishy-washy. They do believe in a different kind of government that we do. I guess what I wonder about the most is would China be there to help us? If the case came that when the moment of truth came to pass and China sided with North Korea, that could be a very bad thing. Excuse me, I know that a lot of people like to discount China and North Korea. I'm one of them that have been pretty flippant about North Korea. But let's face it, the points that were just made, if we go to war with North Korea, people are going to die. It's as simple as that. A lot of North Koreans are going to die. And there will be, I believe, a lot of Japanese, South Koreans, and a lot, because as Britisher said, we have bases all over. We have a huge contingency in South Korea. My stepboy was just there loading F-16s. It would be horrible. And of everything that I like about Trump and everything I dislike about Trump, what's sticking out like the cockroach on the wedding cake right now is Trump saying, continuously saying, not just tweeting, but continuously saying from his platform with the presidential seal on it, oh, you know, come on, Rex Tillerson, trying to negotiate with them is a waste of time. And I just don't like that rhetoric when it comes to negotiating with other countries, whether they have nuclear weapons or not. Negotiations are never off the table if it saves one soldier's life. That's how I feel about it. So yeah, a lot of people would die. That's it.
But the thing where I'm really afraid is, so at first I totally agree that Japan and South Korea are so strong targets if they hit those, and Japan is already nearly bust since 20 years or something, or 25 years. So if they hit like a big city like Tokyo, they go bankrupt right away, and that will have a huge impact on the world economy. My second fear is, I mean, they have these intercontinental ballistic missiles. They can reach almost everything in the United States, and they have old ones, but still a lot of submarines that can carry 6 rockets each, and they are armed with atomic weapons as well. So my fear is, I mean, they don't need to hit the United States like really hard. If they hit only, let's say, Silicon Valley, in my opinion, the USA would collapse from the economic fallout. I mean, the damn Twin Towers, they had basically no economic relevance, but still we had a world economic crisis for like 5 or 7 years only from these 2 towers. And now imagine what would happen if they would destroy Silicon Valley with the most powerful companies of America sitting there all together. That would be disastrous. I'm totally afraid that something like this is happening.
Anybody want to answer that?
I'm too depressed right now.
Yeah,
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, it is really depressing. But there's
not much to add to that.
Struggling with this topic so hard.
Hey, it's good. It's depressing to me because, as I said, you heard me, common sense guy, Britisher, y'all heard me just not too long ago talking about how we would take him off the face of the earth in a matter of hours.
Yeah, small contingency.
I still believe that's true. But man, who wouldn't be a monster if they said to themselves, well, if that happens, we will just nuke and destroy and bomb the hell out of, what is there, 15, 30 million people in that country? I don't even know. I know they have 1.5 million man army.
15 to 20 million.
What do we, so anybody that looks at that and says their lives hasn't been bad enough, now we'll just bomb them all to death. Look, there's a very small regime in control of all those people. Why would anyone want to see those people hurt? Anyway, yeah, it's a little depressing, but it goes back to what I was saying. It should be. And we need to have leaders that say war is a bummer and war is the absolute last ditch effort. It's not something that we do until everything is utterly exhausted. In fact, to me, it's something we shouldn't do until someone attacks us.
That is my opinion as well. As long as they don't attack anybody, I mean, if they attack Japan, if they attack South Korea, then obviously there are partner states of the United States, obviously. But as long as they don't attack anybody.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, the only thing with North Korea is I've said this countless times, and I'm sure people are going to pull me up on it again, but I'll say it again. I honestly do not believe that anybody is that stupid to realize that even if they take out Tokyo, or even if they were to take out China or anything like that, that they would not know that they would be taken out in instances straight afterwards, and would know that their country would be starting to burn to hell afterwards, and knowing that they would be targeted forever after that.
Yes, I
So
agree.
I think I mean, that's the principle of mutually assured destruction, isn't it, as they like to call it?
Yes, absolutely.
Exactly.
Or MAD, to use the acronym.
Yes.
But I think in a way, what is unnerving with North Korea having weapons is not merely that it's just some new country that has acquired them. It is in a way that we understand that the large powers who have nuclear weapons have a certain maturity about them, where we kind of trust that they won't do anything stupid. Not merely today, but in 20 years' time, that we kind of know that they are stable to a certain extent. I think that's why, for example, a lot of eyebrows were raised when a country like Pakistan acquired nuclear weapons, because I think there might have been a shiver running down quite a few spines when they realized that Pakistan, which is what one could say an inherently unstable country, with a kind of tribal hinterland where you never know where the next military coup is coming from, and where there is quite a lot of religious fanaticism. When you've got countries like that, you feel more uncomfortable at their acquiring nuclear weapons, which is, of course, again, one of the reasons why people are so opposed to Iran acquiring nuclear weapons. But then when you look at North Korea, again, you look at a country where you can't really know what their trajectory over the next 30 years is going to be. So when you've got countries that are in no way as mature and stable as the powers, China, Russia, the UK, France, America, we kind of know that they're not going to just somehow disintegrate. When you've got something like North Korea and you then add nuclear weapons to the mix, that's why people get nervous, because you look at it and you go, well, what might happen with that country over the next 10 years? I think it is behind that a lot of the nervousness lies.
But isn't that a question with more or less every country with nuclear weapons?
I don't know.
I'm not afraid that like UKIP is taking over England and then England start bombing the shit out of India or something. Yeah. So I said like basically every country, but in general, I mean, every country that has nukes, there's always a potential risk that some maniac takes over.
Yeah, I mean, there is always a potential risk, but looking at the history of nations, you can kind of make a fair assumption as to, how stable a nation they are. I don't think people are quite as worried about India having nuclear weapons as they are about Pakistan having nuclear weapons.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as I say, if it were, I don't really think people would be that nervous about Japan, but I think with North Korea, people are worried because what they see is, well, it's not healthy, and you don't really know where it might be in the next 20 years. If it just stays as it is now, and it just remains some kind of, malign dictatorship where everybody has to come out and mourn on command when the leader dies,
Jeez.
well, then it doesn't really worry us. But it's the sort of the unknown factor beyond that, as in what may become of this nation because they are so inherently unstable. I mean, you can't really expect this to go on, can you? I mean, how long-lived can something as insane as what we're looking at really survive? And then what will replace it if it falls apart?
Well, I believe they made a game about that.
The
Sorry.
thing is, I have my sympathies for North Korea. So in a way, it's not that I don't think that Kim Jong-un is like a little maniac. Surely he is, but I can understand many of his points that he's making. I mean, it was the United States who was dividing the country after the war, and there were not allies of the Japanese. They were a war victim of World War II. So what was the point to split the country? I can understand why to split Germany, for example. We were an aggressor, but they were not. And so that is the first thing. Then the Korea War, the Korean War took place. So that was the next aggression. And I can understand why they are in this mindset, and that they want to have nuclear weapons to protect themselves. I can understand that as well. So I don't think it's all nuts what these guys are talking about.
Well, I mean, I think when it comes to their rationale as to wanting nuclear weapons, I can fully understand that, because Gaddafi gave up his nuclear programs, and look what became of him.
Exactly.
Saddam Hussein basically handed over his weapons of mass destruction, and look what happened to him. So,
exactly.
In a way, if you do basically confront the rest of the world and say, no, I won't do what you want, I will acquire nuclear weapons, then at least you have that insurance backstop, and they can't suddenly decide they'll regime change you.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hate to do it, but I don't know why you can't see the tie-in with something else that we talked about earlier, Britt. Because when societies gave up their firearms to people like Joseph Stalin, Pol Pot, Mao Zedong, Idi Amin, what happened was always horrible in history. So why on earth would any free country that was able to defend themselves as an individual citizen, just as you said, as a country, why would anybody want to give up that right when we see what's happened in the past?
I didn't know Uganda was disarmed by Idi Amin.
Absolutely, he took the guns from. I mean, okay, well, look into it. Yes, he's a guy. He was everyone that I just mentioned. And you can go all the way back to Hitler did also. So did everybody that I just mentioned took guns from the average person.
That's fair enough.
But look, I shouldn't have done that. It was unfair of me.
That's not a problem, Edgar. It's not a problem. What we're going to do now is, I've said that I was only going to do this stream to 10 o'clock, so I'm going to give everybody a chance to do the same as what we would do normally on Ogre's channel and the British channel. Have a wrap-up if you want to have a wrap-up. If you don't want to have a wrap-up, just say, I'm passing it on. We'll start with stories, then we'll go Ogre, then we'll go Britisher, then we'll go me.
Okay, I make it quick. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. No problem. Always enjoy having you on.
Yeah, and since you're low on time, and that was pretty. I was a cheap shot the last, so I won't even. I was going to go on a thing about that, but I guess I pretty much just said my final word. Good to see you doing well. You had some good people here. You're really good at interacting with your side chat while you maintain order in the stream. I'm glad that you're with us, Common Sense Guy, and I hope to really sit back and enjoy while I watch your channel grow.
Thank you very much.
As for me, I've been much too busy cutting up cardboard, which I hope didn't translate too much through my microphone to actually know what I was thinking about half the time. So I think I'll just pass it on because I really can't think of anything off the top of my head.
That's fine. Mine's not going to be too long tonight either today, chat. Mine's basically going to be, when you've got good friends, as I've always said before, when you've got good friends when you can talk about anything, the world seems to open up to you because you just seem to be able to bounce ideas off of people. It's the same with stories that's joined us today as well. If you've got somebody that knows what they're talking about, who can express their opinion and express what they're going to say, whether you agree with them or not, it doesn't matter. It's the point of having the dialogue. That's what you need to have. If you don't have the dialogue, you stagnate. I say that a lot, but it's true. Right. On that little note then, I'm going to say farewell. Thank you very much, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye for now.